And yep, we're live. Okay. So we've been all sorry guys, anybody who was tuning in earlier. We had a little delay, but and then we started catching up, and I think I could sit here and talk to these gentlemen all day long, and I think they could talk to each other all day as well. So welcome to the 12th episode of celebrating the brand ambassador. And today I'm so honored to have with me two dear friends who have inspired me over my career. Sorry, I got all misty-eyed. It really is. It's such an honor to be here with both of you guys. So I'm going to introduce them. Most of you already know them, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's my pleasure to do so. So I have with me Julio Bermejo, the brand ambassador for the tequila category to America, as well as the beverage. I love that your title is the beverage manager for Tommy's Margarita, his family's restaurant that's been open for over 50 years. A man who also has a Lifetime Achievement Award, so does Tomas. They have so many things in common. A man who's eventually going to have his own tequila on the marketplace, and we'll talk about that later on. But many, and also the creator of the Tommy's Margarita. So thank you so much, Julio, for being here with me. And then with us also we have Thomas Estes, the man who created, I think, the first chain of authentic tequila restaurants in Europe with Pacifico. And I'm saying that actually Cafe Pacifico. And also the man who is the founder of Ocho Tequila. Also achieved the Lifetime Achievement Award, has a Lifetime Achievement Award as well, and also was anointed, I think, the very first ever brand ambassador of tequila for all of Europe. I think I got all that. There's a lot more things they both have done, and including in a book here, which I have, we'll talk about later, the brand ambassador, the tequila brand ambassador, which is one of my favorite tequila books. So thank you, Tomas.
Thank you, Elaine, and thank you, as I have said to you before, for giving me, and in this case, Julio, the opportunity to speak about this category of tequila, which he and I have, I think it's not an exaggeration to say that we have devoted a large part of our lives, our energy, our attention, and probably our livers to the amount of tequila that we have drank together and separately. So it has been a great adventure for me on my own. And I absolutely cannot imagine having gone as far as I think I have without my confrère, my own brother, Julio, doing it with me.
You two really are. When I read both your histories, they're like brothers from their mothers. But sorry, Julio, go ahead.
Oh, no, I completely agree. And I will say it's been an incredible ride. But I need to preface, if Tomas and you don't mind, our quote-unquote roles as ambassadors, because I am incredibly jealous and envious of Ian Burrell, who created his own ambassadorship. But more importantly, Ian comes from a category like every other alcoholic category in the world, where they are looking for new customers. And Tomas and I, for better or worse, even though I think we may represent the funnest category of alcohol in the world, we represent a category that is the only category that is not looking for any new customers. And that, in fact, you know, if you go to the CNIT, the association that named us, and said, my God, I want to promote tequila all over the world and can you contribute even airfare or lodging? They'll say no, because they cannot make enough quality tequila to get to the people that want it. So
Wow.
whereas Ian gets to go to every country in the world, and they'll pay him and they'll put him up and they want him to promote every quality rum, you know, in our category, they'll just say, we don't have any money to waste on when we can't make enough product. I mean, it's
Wow.
such a crazy category because of the raw material. And so, like Tom said, it's truly been a passion about the category and the people, but mainly focused in my case to try to promote my business, you know?
Wow.
So, you know, as much as I love tequila, I wish the category loved Tomas and myself just a little bit more.
That is so well said, Julio. Thanks so much for that. Yeah.
Well,
A good way to launch into this subject.
I think so. I think that is a perfect way to launch into this subject because, you know, I love the fact, you know, you both grew up in California, right? So, or Tomas, you did grow up in I know when you grew up in California in East LA,
Yes.
right? And then Julio, you grew up in San Francisco. You are Mexican. You grew up in a Mexican family who had a Mexican restaurant, and you drove to Yucatan. And we're going to talk about that every year. So that's how you really got to know a little bit about tequila. But Tomas, you grew up with a lot of people from Mexico, and you fell in love with the culture. And we're not going to talk about your teenage years. We're going to skip right into your more adult years, when you were still young men who became of legal age, and you made a conscious decision to learn everything there was about tequila. Now, Tomas, you said you started going to Mexico all the time in your youth because it was fun. You could go and have drinks there. But when did you start visiting distilleries? Like, what's your story behind that?
Okay, Elaine. Yeah, I've always had a fascination and an attraction to Mexico, being a white or Anglo kid, born post-war. I felt like gray. I felt invisible as one of hundreds of thousands of kids. And the ones that I felt were unique in grade school were the Mexican kids, who were about a third of the class. Why were they unique? Because they were different in a way that was easy to see and feel. And they actually had this rich culture around them and behind them, and they expressed it in such immediate and strong ways. So that is the first sensation or memory that I have of this love, and actually a kind of envy of the Mexican culture compared to the American. So the American, it is easy for me as an American who has lived outside of America many, many years to be critical of it and to see it from an outsider's point of view. So let's see, where am I with answering your question?
You haven't gotten to Mexico yet. So I know you have an aunt that lives in Guadalajara, and she knew the owner of Sauza. Was that your first distillery?
That's true. Thank you for bringing me back from the wilds of my reveries.
It's okay.
It's true that once I decided to learn as much as I could about the tequila category, and I wanted to do that I think I've heard Julio say this earlier today in our talk, that the base motivation or ideas for Julio's activities comes from wanting to promote and do the most good for his business, his family business. And this is what my motivation was too. So again, it is one of those things that Julio and I, one of those many things that Julio and I share. And in this case, it's so fundamental that it has this large importance. So when I wanted to promote my businesses, my Cafe Pacificos, which were going to start in Amsterdam. Eventually, I got the one in Amsterdam open in 1976. While I was preparing to do that, it's true that my aunt Maria Elena Maycock de Aguirre, she lived in Guadalajara in the early 70s when I was examining whether I could figure out a way to support myself in Holland, in Amsterdam, which I wanted to do. And by opening something that was a hole in the market that no one was doing, and that idea was to have a Mexican cantina restaurant. And so my aunt,
which is totally crazy, by the way, because nobody in Amsterdam drinks tequila at all, especially not in the 1970s. They don't even know what it is.
Absolutely. This is what I can call tequila prehistory in the 70s. I mean, it was just buried under, well, it was buried under, I don't know what, but it was not something that people certainly in Europe knew about, including Holland. So the first distillery that I visited, now getting back to your question finally after half an hour, was Sauza, because my aunt, Maria Elena, was friends with Mimi Smilgas Sauza, who was one of the Sauza family, and who is, if Maria Elena is still alive, and I'm not sure she is or not, who is Guillermo Erickson Sauza's aunt. So my aunt and her aunt were close friends. And it was Sauza that I went to first. And this was in the days, this was pre-tequila distillery tour times. So they had no set tours going. And after Salsa, I would arrange other visits, and again at distilleries, pre-tour or tourist or promotional visits to them.
Wow, because I didn't realize you started Cafe Pacifico before you started going to the distillery. So that makes a lot of sense. Am I saying that correctly?
Actually, no, I've misled you.
Okay.
During the time when I was attempting to open Amsterdam, then I went to Salsa. So once again, Cafe Pacifico Amsterdam opened 1976, and it was the 6 years prior to that I was working on getting myself together enough to open the place. And it was then that I visited Guadalajara and
okay. Very cool. And it says a lot to your character, because you wanted to be authentic. If you're going to open a Mexican bar, right, you're going to need to know everything there is about tequila. Which it says a lot why you became the ambassador for Europe, because that takes a lot of effort, especially back then. There was no internet, no tours,
no internet whatsoever. Yeah,
no GPS.
Yeah, exactly. No GPS, and you had to figure it out all on your own. Julio, you also started going. We won't talk about your teenage years, but you started going. You started going to distilleries in your young age, when you've been working at Tommy's your whole life, right? Your family restaurant. And you talked about, like, you wanted to learn more about tequila. You got introduced to it by your cousins because you didn't like what they were drinking. They were drinking rum and beer, and you decided, not when you were younger, that wasn't for you. And skipping ahead here, and then you decided you wanted to know everything there was about tequila, because you had a Mexican restaurant and you wanted to upgrade it. So just tell us when you started going.
But being from southern Mexico, or all my brothers and sisters and parents were born in the Yucatan, we would go to the Yucatan every other year driving. So it's about
so far
miles. Yeah, it's a 5-day drive, because we would only sleep at gas stations in the middle of the night.
I actually looked it up. I didn't know where it was. If anybody doesn't know Yucatan, it's like way on the tip. It's near Guatemala.
The Yucatan is closer to Cuba and to Miami than to Mexico City.
Yeah,
for example,
it's really far.
But I remember as a little boy always driving on Highway 15, which would take us right through the town of Tequila. And I always saw bottles, but I never had an attraction or an interest. What really was my epiphany was in late 1989, when a bartender friend and customer, and the best friend of our family attorney, who would come to drink at Tommy's, told me, while I was learning how to be a bartender, he told me, you got to come to my bar, or the bar he worked at, a place called Palomino in Berkeley, because he had just gotten 2 tequilas that he thought were the most amazing things. And so I knew a touch about tequila, only because I drank at that time some Hornitos and some Herradura Reposado. But he invited me to try a Patron made by Siete Leguas and El Tesoro Muy Añejo made at La Alteña. And that really changed my life. When I tried the El Tesoro, I read the back label of the bottle, and it talked about a guy named Don Felipe. And it was that moment where I tried something that to me was so delicious that I had to find out more. So I contacted Bob Denton, asking him, this is ironic,
Explain who Bob Denton is, because some people might not know who he is.
Bob Denton is the godfather of 100% agave tequila in the United States. I mean, he basically created the category by importing Caliente in the late 70s, which was from La Gonzalena. Then he eventually imported Chinaco, and then eventually El Tesoro, etc.
Wow.
It was ironic because I didn't know how the hierarchy worked, whether it's I call Southern or back then it was Henry Price imports, or I call the distillery or the importer. I call the importer. However, Bob told me that I could not visit because La Alteña was not prepared to receive visitors. And so I waited several months, and then I asked again, and again I was refused. And then I said, forget it. I'm going on my own. So I went on my own, and I took my girlfriend at the time, and we met the Camarena family, and I eventually would fall in love with one of Don Felipe's daughters. And fortunately, things worked out a little bit.
Yeah, just so you know, that's now his wife, Lily. Yeah. I love that story.
But more importantly, also like Tomas, having a foothold, whether it was with Jalisco or Mexico, or in this case with a particular producer, I feel so privileged that the people I met early on were really incredibly well respected, and individuals that were more interested in making quality products than making millions of cases. But I didn't realize that back then.
Who is the first people you met with?
I met my future father-in-law.
Gotcha. Was that, and didn't you meet the people from Herradura as well, or no?
Yeah, and the people from Herradura and Siete Leguas. But, in this is now 1990, and like Tomas, there were very few formal distilleries giving tours, and so when I drove out to Arandas with my girlfriend at the time, the first thing I did was stop at a big liquor store, and I stopped in at this store, and I asked the shopkeeper if he could recommend the best tequila that he had in the store. Now, I knew nothing. And so what was fascinating was this gentleman, instead of pointing me to a commercially made product, he recommended a tequila that he had aging underneath the counter, and that was sold at quite a discount, but that he said was the best. So I bought 2 bottles of that. And, again, I was assuming the shopkeeper had my best interests and was genuinely selling me something really high quality. And I would eventually take those bottles to Don Felipe, and there we would deconstruct them, and I would find out that I was taken for a very nice ride around Aranda.
Not so good tequila. Did it have a worm in it? I mean, it was
not really. But again, we all depend. Back in the day, there were no brand ambassadors coming to Tommy's to teach me about Herradura or about Sauza or about Cuervo or about anything. I mean, Tomas and I think in a very unique way, had to go learn it for ourselves because there was so little information out about our categories.
No, absolutely. Well, Tomas, you also told me a great story that you started writing. You actually became an influencer before an influencer was a thing. If you had an Instagram account back then, you would have been killing it. You started writing. You were a writer, and you started writing for a Mexican magazine about tequila. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Well, yes, gladly. And to introduce this, I will go back to what Julio said earlier, which was we have embraced this passion and love for tequila. We've based that on wanting to do the best thing for our businesses. And so what I was approaching writing about tequila was my way of marketing my bars and restaurants, because I had this realization way back in the late 80s or early 90s that marketing was more and more taking a place in the world economy by driving interests and demands. And I thought, well, I'm not going to hire a marketing company, because you guys both know, and I'm sure Julio with Tommy's, you know, it's prohibitive and scary. Prohibitive in terms of money for a small business person like myself, and probably the Bermejo family, to make this giant investment. So I thought, okay, I'm going to write myself about the category, and hopefully through my presence in the various expressions of media, I will get the word out about my businesses. And I had started writing for trade journals in the UK. Julio, you have participated in most of the development of bar shows, bar magazines, or drinks magazines. So you know way, way back then how it started. So I was successful with getting Class, or one of those very early bar magazines, to publish my articles.
Wow.
But what really pushed me to the forefront, I would say, in the tequila world, in the eyes of the tequileros, the tequila producers, was when I started writing for Alfonso Lujan for Tequila 100%. Do you remember that magazine, Julio?
Yeah, you bet. That's right, Tom.
How would you describe the magazine?
Well, it was a beautiful paper magazine that featured the entire tequila industry, but the photographs were beautiful, the advertisements were beautiful, the content was great. I actually don't know why it failed, but it was a wonderful magazine.
Was it only sold in Mexico?
I think so.
Okay.
It was done by a man named Alfonso Lujan, and I got to know him. At first, I was hoping to be paid to write these articles for this magazine, because the magazine was a business. Now, this, in my memory, was during a time when we used to, Julio and I, experience being paid to go and speak at bar shows and to do things. We would be paid by the brand, let's call it an honorarium, or our expenses. And all of that got slowly cut back until current time, where that is unheard of these days. But you remember when brands were fatter and more generous with their expenses, Julio?
Yes, but those are distant memories.
Very sadly distant memories. So yeah, I started writing for Tequila 100%, which we could call a lifestyle magazine. As you have said, I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And to this day, even if it doesn't exist anymore for years now, it is still the closest thing that the category has had to a voice for the category. And so, as a result of my having written numerous articles, I became known, at least my name became known to the tequileros who would look at the magazine and read the articles, as somebody that perhaps was a powerful person in the thinking of the pen is mightier than the sword. So they would have wanted, I'm thinking, to know this author, Tomas Estes, just in case he would favor one of them. So I found that a giant step forward in my, let's say, tequila cultural image.
Wow. So that was even before you were named. This is probably what led you eventually becoming named the tequila ambassador. It definitely helped.
I would say so, yes.
Wow. That's an amazing. You really were. You would have 1 million likes by now, Tomas. And 1 million followers in the tequila category. Now, Julio, so you guys are both bar operators. Julio, you've been working at Tommy's been open for over 50 years. It's your family business. You became the beverage manager at a very early age. And it was really important, I know, for you to introduce people to the category of tequila. And you created a program, Tequila Around the World. So tell us how you were inspired by it and how it works, because it still runs today. I've walked into the bar and seen you actually doing the program live a few times, and kind of experienced it myself. You know, I don't have a card. One day I'm gonna have to buy a card next time I come in. But tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us about how you were inspired and why you started doing it.
Well, as I started to learn more and more about tequila, I found myself trying to stock more and more tequilas at Tommy's. And at first, I did take the approach like other people were doing, in literally trying to carry whatever products were available on the market. Luckily, you know, I had another epiphany, and I started just carrying and focusing on 100% agave tequilas. However, when I carried like 24 things in 1985 at Tommy's, even though that was the largest selection of 100% agave in San Francisco, I could get no press or no one to come to Tommy's and see what we were doing. I mean, I wish
And you
I
didn't
would
know
have.
Thomas, right? You didn't know Tomas back then. You didn't want him to write about you.
Well, I wish I would have been that savvy, because I was in a little cave out in the Richmond district, and I would get really a little bit jealous at the fact that there was a really beautiful Mexican restaurant on Ellis Street run by Chef John Sedler, and it was a Western Mexican restaurant, and he had 1,800% agave products, and he got all the tequila press. And I'm like,
you're cheated.
Crush this guy. What's going on? But anyway, so I needed to find a way to get people to try the products that I had on my back bar. And so what I did was I copied a program based on a beer around the world card from a bar in Berkeley, California called Raleigh's, where I went to school at. And basically, if you drank every beer they offered, you got a free hat or a free t-shirt or some sort of gimmick. So I did the same thing. But instead of having guests try all the tequilas we offered, I made them try a half, and then they would get a little diploma in a frame and a t-shirt. But what really blew my mind was the fact that when people started to quote unquote graduate, that their thirst of knowledge was insatiable. I mean, I thought, once I showed somebody some tequila and they liked something, I could be done with them and I could go on to the next guest. And what I saw was people were really anxious to learn more. So I eventually created a program that had 3 tiers. One is called the master level, and all you do is drink. The second level is the PhD level, where after you drink things, we will give you 11 pages of study material, and then you have to take a proctored exam that is more difficult than the CRT exam given to bartenders today. And then finally, if you could pass our test with a minimum 80%, you could go on a wait list to visit distilleries with me. And people love it. And
I was going to say, 80% is high, my friend. I mean, the WSET, you only have to get like a 68 on the level 3.
I'm from Berkeley. It's really, but if you succeed, you will go far.
Do you still give the test?
Yes, we do. Absolutely.
Wow. How many people have passed it?
Several hundred. A lot of people, what's sad is a lot of people, after they become a quote unquote tequila master, they don't want to go further because either they're intimidated or they already feel like they know enough. But for for certain people, and we've had Angus Winchester take our exam, Dre Masso, Charles Vexenot, Eric Johnson, Jacques Bezadenhout. I mean, they've all taken my classes and exams. Tony Abughanim, they've passed the exam. So it's certainly very doable.
Wow. And how many people have you brought down to Mexico?
Over the years, in my trips would be 6 to 8 people, over 300 people.
Wow. Tomas, have you ever seen his exam?
Yes, I have. And I have personally experienced Julios Trips, organized trips to Mexico. And here,
disorganized to Mexico.
Well, you pulled it off where no one else was doing it, and you had this crazy idea to organize these trips, And I'm thinking of I think they became known as writers' trips. And for me, they were people that were top in their country, in the culture of spirits and bars, from the US, from UK, from Europe. And that was monumental that you did get that organized and actually financed by some of the large players. Luckily, they were still in the what I guess was the tail end of their abilities to do this sort of promotional thing. And to me, the effect of having these central stars of the cocktail bar world in each of these countries, to have them go and basically allow you to change their lives, because Elaine and our viewers, what Julio used to say is, this trip to Mexico, if you go with me, will change your life. And it sounds perhaps preposterous, and yet it's actually way modest in terms of what I have seen it do to those people that Julio took on this trip. So I think that had an influence inestimable, in other words, beyond even being able to be measured.
Wow.
Huh?
Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you for having done it, Julio. Once again, I really do think that having had all of those people, and many times it seems that there were maybe 20 or 25 people.
Yeah, they're all some big ones too.
Yeah.
But
So,
Thomas, from what Julio told me, I think if you survived the test that Julio gave you, written and otherwise, drinking wise, and you made it to Mexico and you came back alive, that was a good thing.
But Elaine and Tomas, remember, Tomas, when I took Gary Regan for the first time, and this guy blew my mind. I mean, after like an all-night session, and after people, after Dom Costa mooning everybody, you know, taking his pants off, Gary Regan would be the first person to be up at 9 a.m. and looking for a drink. I mean, that blew me away. I was, my God, another level.
I remember that, Julio. Never, ever will I forget it. Those times like that with a character like Gaz Regan, who was sharing that trip with all those names that you said earlier, including Dale DeGroff and Jill, Phil Bailey. I mean, it was a dangerous crew. I'm surprised we made it out of there without being thrown in Mexican prison. Yeah.
That is like a legend. Those are like legends all in one place, all in Mexico. That sounds like a dangerous. I wish I was a fly on the wall to watch all the things that transpired. Well, speaking of legends, I want to hear the story because I do think it's amazing. Tomas, so I'm going to go to when, so you have Cafe Pacifico now you opened in Holland, you had one in London, you had one in Paris, and you had one in Australia. and you found out the CNIT were going to London, and you graciously offered to hook them up while you were there. And tell us what. And this is what led eventually. It's not why you became the tequila ambassador, but it kind of the ceremony happened on that trip. So tell us a little about that.
What happened is that Julio and I already knew one another quite well, actually. And the CNIT, so the Mexican National Tequila Chamber, was planning this visit with 40 tequila producers, the top end ones, and their families, and
Wow.
including people from the CNIT and the Tequila Regulatory Council. And what they were going to do was go to London in the company of the then president of Mexico, Mr. Fox, who was one of my heroes, and I would say still is. So when I heard of this intention, I thought, hey, this is an opportunity for me to get my message out, get my image out of my business. So I volunteered to help them with their visit, to make it as PR effective for them and the category as possible. So along the way, I invited the whole group, of which Julio was one of the participants, to come to Cafe Pacifico on the Sunday night of before the first event, and to host a dinner with them. And
Wow.
And during that, yeah, Julio?
Oh no, it was amazing.
It was unprecedented, huh? Yeah. The Tequila Group, whether it's the CNIT or the CRT, have not before nor since ever done something like that.
Wow.
Which I find sad or disappointing, because that would be, I think, really good for the category, even to do it on a yearly base, but that hasn't been done, as we both know. And so during this dinner, you maybe remember, Julio, I had told them, the tequileros, that they could bring their own product and I would not charge them a corkage fee to drink and serve their own tequilas if they so wished. And after the event, well, what I said to them, and if you would be of the mind to want to do this, I would appreciate what you don't drink if you would leave with us at Cafe Pacifico. And what I remember is a long table laden with all of these tequila treasures. Do you remember that, Julio?
Oh my God, you had the biggest tequila selection in the world at your bar outside of Mexico that weekend.
Yes. So I think, Julio, you accompanied them then later to Scotland and to Paris, wasn't it?
I went to Scotland. I decided not to go to Paris, but oh no, I did go to Paris. Yeah, I went to Paris for one day, but yeah, they went on to continue to sign agreements with the EU and UK about the denomination of origin status of tequila.
Yes.
Wow. Wait, is that the year that it actually became a denomination?
No, it's the year that the UK and the EU recognized tequila.
Wow.
Oh no, this was
Wow,
a mess. I mean, Tomas is being very modest. What he put together has never been done, has never been done since. But again, the largest contingent of tequila producers outside of Mexico gathered at Pacifico. And again, it was incredibly serious business for them. But the opportunity that Tomas let us all have by being at Pacifico, and him being incredibly generous and actually, I think, very smart by letting everyone drink their own products, created a camaraderie that honestly I had never seen before.
Wow.
And honestly, it is that, I mean, I think Tom's European influence that was truly groundbreaking, because following that experience, a couple of years later, when tequila companies started to take an interest in bringing, say, European bartenders to Mexico, after I had been taking European bartenders, what changed the game was that because Europe, or in my mind, was so far from Mexico, that European bartenders had the gall and the balls to ask if, when they were taken to Mexico, if they could stay on their own dime, because they wanted to learn even more and visit more distilleries. Like in my experience, my God, when I was blessed to have a company take me to Mexico, because it was very rare, I was only there to visit them. And then the minute the tour ended, I came back. And I was blown away by bartenders at Pacifico and bartenders at Lab and other incredible places telling these companies, oh yeah, I want to go, but can I, with my own money, stay longer, because I want to go visit more places. That had never been done on this side
amazing.
of the water. And it was so groundbreaking.
So clever. So absolutely clever.
Absolutely. But
No,
more importantly, that gathering at Pacifico and Tomas leading that group and showing that group that, you know, the whole category wins if people drink good tequila. That was groundbreaking.
Wow. What year was this, Tomas? Do you remember?
That was, first of all, thank you very much, Julio. That feels great to have your praise. That was what, 2002?
No, 2001.
2001.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. 19 years ago. It feels like a lifetime and like such a different world, that tequila was still growing at that point compared to where it is now.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And at that same dinner, that was when it was announced that they were going to make you the European brand ambassador for tequila.
Well,
correct?
It is, and it was announced by one man who was the then president of the CNIT, Francisco Gonzalez, who Julio knows as well, or probably better than I. And he is a big man, and he stood up and said, thanks to me for having organized the evening, and thanks to me for having done what he considered was this promotional work around the category. Probably my thinking is that he was reacting to these articles in Tequila 100% magazine. And so he stood up to thank me on the part of the CNIT and the other tequila producers for doing what I had been doing. And then he said,
Wow.
yes, in recognition, we have, he used the we like the Queen. We have decided, and I think that it was a spur of the moment response from him. He said, we have made this recognition and we're going to give you this plaque. And he spread his arms out like the size of a dining table. And following that, I was absolutely elated by the whole experience and by what he had said. And as soon as the high that I was experiencing calmed down enough, I thought, well, there were about 100 people in that party at Cafe Pacifico that heard that experienced that, yet I seriously doubted that anything more would come of it. And I wanted more to come of it. So what did I do? I went as soon as I could to Julio and I said, Julio, you were there. You saw what happened. I said, as far as I'm concerned, I merit, deserve this title. However, you deserve it as much or likely more than me. So I said, let's lobby, let's politic around and work on getting a proper recognition from someone, whether it's the CRT or the CNIT. And so we agreed that we would do that. And by that time, the president of the CNIT had become Eduardo Orendan, who you probably had a closer relationship with than Francisco. And I remember going to a meeting at a bar or a dinner in Berkeley with Francisco and talking to him about what we wanted. And I remember him saying, well, what do you want to have? What we said is we would appreciate the title and with a plaque that we could hang in Tommy's or Cafe Pacifico, because Julio had already at that time a number of plaques from other tequila representatives for his as thanks for what he had done. And
So just a plaque? You get the title and a plaque.
yes. But imagine, Elaine, the plaque was material. I mean, it was something you could take a photo of and point to. It had more power to it than simply words.
Fair enough. That makes sense.
And so Julio and I were scheming, and once a year, the tequileros, the tequila producers, have a celebration which they call Dia del Tequilero, the Day of the Tequila Producers. And so we had understood that we would receive these plaques, these recognitions, these official notices of our ambassadorships. However, Julio, I remember it as that right up to so Julio and I were there at the ceremony. There were like 500 people present with unlimited supplies of tequila and food, and it was a wonderful event.
It was at Vicente Fernandez's ranch.
That's correct. Yeah, that's
Vicente Fernandez is Mexico's most famous male mariachi singer.
Oh, wow.
And it's always in September. This was 2003.
2003. Thanks for that, Julio. So as far as I remember, we did not know for certain whether we would get this recognition publicly and in a material way. And finally, we were awarded that plaque, each of us, in front of the 500 people involved. So that was most gratifying.
Yeah, wow. Took a couple of years for that.
I wish we could have been like Simon Ford and had gotten an expense account card.
Yeah, I asked, I was going to say, do you get any perks for being the brand? I mean, like, I know it's good for PR. Is that pretty much the major perk for being the brand ambassador for tequila?
Exactly.
It has so far. I like to tell people, being the ambassador of the category, we got no special passport, no special license plates, no
just a plaque
account.
Zero.
But it looks exactly. You did it for love, and it really looks good on the resume. You know, it definitely. Seriously, I mean, I remember when I was first learning about tequila, that was like, you're like the first two people to pop up. It's like, you want to know about tequila? These, you know, you have to go to the brand ambassadors of Mexico of tequila. So, all right. So I really do. I'm glad I finally know that story, because I never knew it. And I really find it so enjoyable, even though I'm sad that you guys don't get any benefits from it, from the Mexican government, but it's a nice title. Right. Okay. So I do want to ask, and I know you've taken this really seriously, and hold on, I'm looking at my questions. So, Julio, I know you have a vision for a tequila brand one day. What is the brand going to be? And I know I've tasted it. I tasted L&J. Which I love the fact, and what L&J, tell them what L&J stands for, right? Is that the tequila? That's going to be the official name, or am I getting that wrong?
Well, we hope. I mean,
we hope.
You know, so I'd like to make a great comment where, again, I have to admire Tomas so much, and people like Simon Ford as well, and Ian Burrell, because there's two ways to make a brand. the way they've done it and the wrong way, which is the way I'm doing it, right? So I very erroneously decided to build brick and mortar instead of launching a product, having someone make it, and then battling in the marketplace. In 2008, my wife and I decided to start building our distillery, and with no investors, no shareholders, no bank loans. So it's taken us forever and longer. But the dream one day is to commercialize a brand called L&J. That's our registered trademark. And we've distilled in the past at my wife's family's distillery, La Alteña, where Tomas currently makes ocho. But again, in retrospect, I wish I would have listened to Gordon Wright and Tomas Estes and Simon Ford and all these other people that would tell me, why are you building? You know, that's crazy. And it is crazy. But
it's not crazy, Julio. One day I dream of going to Mexico and going to the L&J distillery, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be like 20 years in the making, and it's going to be fantastic.
Well, I appreciate your optimism. And we're 80% done with construction, but we haven't done anything in years because, you know, I don't know, bad luck, laziness, whatever. But also, you know, my wife finds herself. Oh, and this is a project, obviously, with my wife that I had want to do. But my wife is also with her sisters, basically in the middle of buying her family's business. So I'm a little bit redundant, and I'm trying to make myself not redundant. But, you know, but one day there'll be L&J.
I look forward to it. And Tomas, you launched your tequila brand, Tequila Ocho. What year was that? And I know, and I love the story behind it. So, because it has a very specific, you know, the fact that it's from one field, a single field distillate, which is really unique. So, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, thanks. I was talking to Carlos Camarena, Julio's brother-in-law, on one of our trips to Mexico with the team of various members of Cafe Pacifico and La Perla Bar. Carlos invited me to do a tequila brand with him. And wow, I was so excited and flattered. And we decided that we would make it different to Tesoro and Tapatio, which are other brands, like time-honored classic brands made by the Camarena family. So we wanted the brand to be distinctively different to them. And we said, let's make this all about taste. Let's emphasize the tequila uniqueness, or the agave, cooked agave uniqueness in its flavor. And along the way, thinking about the flavor of this tequila, I was aware of this fact that many people had the idea that tequilas made from agaves exclusively grown in the Tequila Valley were different in their flavor to those tequilas made exclusively from agaves of the highlands.
Mm-hmm.
Then I said, well, I had been fascinated by having gone to Burgundy 19 consecutive years in a row, tasting Burgundy reds and whites on premiere, and tasting them and walking the fields with the producers, or the fields or the vineyards. So seeing where a Grand Cru vineyard was next to a Premier Cru, next to Village wine, and next to a generic. So I said to Carlos, could we make single vineyard lots or productions of this tequila? And he said, yes, but be careful. And I said, well, I'm not accustomed to being careful. What do you mean? And he said, we can do it and they will be different. And I said, wow, let's go for it. Because up until that time, most all tequilas, and I would venture to say most all spirits, had wanted to be consistent year after year in their quality and their taste. And we were taking a different approach. So that's the background to that. And right now, after what is it been, 2008, after 12, 13 years and about 23 or 24 different ranches, we have found that this idea of the French, which they call terroir, that the natural elements of any one place influences the things that grow there. Well, we seem to have made that point. And what's probably as important to me as that is that we have had all of this fun doing things our own way, because the Camarenas have such high integrity in what they do. They have such a golden reputation for sticking to quality rather than quantity. It has been a very, very gratifying activity.
Absolutely. Well, I'm drinking some of your reposado right now, and it's delicious, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I am a fan. This is one from 2019, and it's amazing how you are married to a Camarena, and your tequila is produced at a Camarena. So you guys are like brothers from another mother, related in some, and not really related, but related in so many ways. And guys, I could speak to you two all day, and there's definitely other questions I have, but it's been over an hour, and so I want to let you guys go, and I'll let our audience go, and maybe we can have like a special episode where I can ask some of the other questions that I have here for the two of you about the tequila industry right now and where it's going and all those things, because I would really love to hear your opinions on that. But for now, I think we're gonna, because this has been amazing, we're gonna wrap it up. And if you would do me that honor, I would love to have you on again to kind of, we'll say a tequila round 2. and where the tequila industry is going, because this has been fantastic. So, or else, is there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap up?
Only from me, once again, the thanks for having given Julio and I our kind of life, for each of us, our lifetime passion and pride to be able to continue our promotion of the tequila category with and through you. So thanks. Julio?
No, my honor.
Well, thank you as well. And I want to do a quick shout out to Ago, to Gabi, to Dean Kalen, to Paulino, to the guys listening in, to Nicola, and also tell, wish everybody a happy World Bartenders Day. But also, if anyone has an interest in tequila or in any distillate, I would encourage them to not just seek one opinion, but to find several and to try as many things as possible. And when you do decide on the product that you like, find out about that. Because in our category, and Tomas, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I personally have been disappointed that over the last decade, tequila has become more and more mediocre as it has become more and more globalized. And though the category is incredibly healthy and to some degree profitable, I'm sad that a lot of people are turning away from making tequila in a more traditional way and bringing to market tequilas that are really at the forefront, indicative of the raw material. So, my thing, I fell in love with tequila because of the flavor of the plant, right? And I'm not saying it's for everyone, but tequila is a unique enough raw material that if you like it, you should appreciate its qualities. And if you don't like it, you should go drink whatever you do like, whether it's grain or sugarcane or fruit or something. But agave has a flavor that needs to be present and representative in the distillate.
I can agree with that. Tomas, what do you feel about that?
I can agree with it, and I am continuing to be impressed by Julio's ability to communicate these things. Thank you for that, Julio. Well said.
Yeah, well, really well said. I will say it is sometimes sad. Obviously we're seeing the category grow, and Julio, as you said to me, the people in tequila don't really want the category to grow. And the people who drink, God bless everybody, appreciates tequila. And vodka and other spirits, but it doesn't mean we have to water down an amazing product to appeal to everyone. I think that's exactly. It should say true and authentic to itself. And it is an amazing spirit. It's one of my favorite spirits to drink. Actually, and one thing I do want to, I wanted to have one more shout out, because I forgot to and Tomas didn't mention this, but something I found really cool. For those of you, we always think mezcal, it's like, it's this new and not new. We know it's been around for a while, but the fact that Tomas, you brought mezcal to Holland, a pallet of mezcal to Holland in like 1978.
Correct.
Which is amazing. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there because that is a fact that just should be known.
It was kind of one of those shotgun approaches to having started that business, to not only pioneer with tequila, but then to go for it with mezcal, which was miles or kilometers even more obscure than tequila in Europe at that time.
No, absolutely. And I know we're going to leave you all cliffhanging here, because that's a conversation we're going to have to continue. And I would really love to have you guys back on, and Gabby definitely agrees. So I look forward to doing this again, and we'll continue that conversation that Julio started about, you know, where the category is going and what we would hope to see for the future. So gentlemen, again, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you. I look forward to doing it in person sometime soon. And thank you guys so much for your time. So I'm going to say bye for now, and I look forward to scheduling it again. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and this episode is taped and it will be on my website, so you can watch the whole thing if you missed anything. So just so you know, there you go. Bye, Gabby.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Until